Welcome to Assessing for Suicide and Self-Harm. My name is Michelle Strain, and I have a master's degree in human relations counseling, a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and I'm a licensed professional counselor candidate. Today we're going to talk about creating an action plan for assessing for suicide or self-harm. The action plan comes to us from Mental Health First Aid for Youth, and the action plan is an acronym, ALGE. So, first, you assess for risk of suicide or harm. Next, you listen non judgmentally. Next, give reassurance and information. Then, encourage appropriate professional help. And finally, encourage self help and other support strategies. It's really important that you look at a student and check their physical signs and symptoms for a mental health crisis. It could be cardiovascular, it could be respiratory, the fast breathing, shortness of breath. They could be dizzy or have a headache. They could have muscle aches or pains, or even tremors or shaking. All of these signs could be something medical, or it could be something emotional. Other physical signs to consider included an unusual hormonal change, changes in a normal pattern. This one is a big one. Overeating or not eating at all, or sleeping a lot more or a lot less are all things to keep out your eyes out for. Appearance is somewhere where your teachers can help you too. If there's a change in hygiene, if they're not showering or they're unkept, their eyes are bloodshot, or if they've gained or lost weight, and there's really no other explanation. When you're talking about signs and symptoms for emotions, some of this may be things you really notice a lot, like a depressed mood or mood swings, which could be just normal teenage or type of moods that the person has. There's could be unrealistic or excessive anxiety or guilt about something that has happened. Excessive irritability or anger. If you have a kid responding in anger frequently, this could be an issue. Lack of inhibition, driving really fast, taking a lot of risks. Lack of emotion or emotional response. Anytime when a student loses affect, it's a concern. Helplessness or hopelessness is a really important one to consider. Oversensitivity and low self esteem could all be signs or symptoms. Other signs and symptoms to consider are those of behavior. Frequent self criticism or blame, pessimism, difficulty concentrating or remembering things, indecisiveness or confusion, rigid thinking, racing thoughts, tending to believe that others see them as a bad person or in a negative way, an altered sense of self, either like a sense of grandeur or maybe a sense of self loathing. Delusions or hallucinations would be a big concern. Odd ideas, lack of insight, paranoia or suspiciousness, and then, of course, thoughts of death or suicide. Other behaviors to notice might be crying spells, withdrawal from others. If they're neglecting their responsibilities, suddenly they just stop working in their classes, or they stop going to practice or their clubs. Loss of interest in their appearance or how they look, loss of motivation. Maybe it looks like they're in slow motion. Maybe they've started using drugs and alcohol either for the first time or in an elevated way. Maybe a change in their energy level, either really energetic or really lethargic. Obsessive or compulsive behavior, avoidance or phobic behavior, showing stress, or even talking rapidly. I want to take a moment and stop and talk about self harm. There are really a lot of reasons why people injure themselves. Some could be to feel physical pain where they feel emotional pain. Sometimes it could be to get attention. There's all kinds of reasons, and it's really not up to us to determine what that reason is. There are lots of ways people self injure. Typically, you think of cutting or burning, but there are people who pull out their hair. There are people who punch holes in the wall. There are people who bang their head on things, all kinds of ways to self injure. Self-injury does not always mean a person is suicidal, but some things you can look for are unexplained or oddly explained cuts, bruises, burns, scrapes, several cuts or injuries in one area, lots of wrist bracelets or bands. If you notice somebody who always wears those, that could be a clue. Bandages, or long sleeves or pants, even in hot weather. I know that's kind of a trend right now for a lot of teenagers to be wearing their hoodies. I know my son does, but this is something that could be concerning if it's more than one thing all put together. Let's talk about typical stages versus warning signs. In typical adolescence, it is really normal for teens to withdraw from their family to spend more time with their friends. But a warning sign could be if they're withdrawing from their friends, also their family, and social activities they may be used to doing. Athletic events, clubs, hanging out on Friday night with their friends, that could be a warning sign. Wanting more privacy versus becoming more secretive, or the need for privacy, or seems to be hiding something. You guys trust your gut on that. That is something that could be happening for various reasons, but that could be a warning sign. Moving from childhood likes to teen pursuits is normal, but losing interest in their favorite activities and not replacing them with other pursuits could be a warning sign of a problem. Just a reminder that when you're looking at all of these things in isolation, it might not be a big deal. But when these symptoms and signs start adding up, that's when you really might explore that there's a problem. Let's talk about risk factors. Lots of people have a lot of risk factors all the time based on their life situation, but you're really looking for things like exposure to stressful life events or trauma or even abuse, abusive childhood or a difficult childhood, ongoing stress or anxiety, a medical condition, or a hormonal change could be an indicator or a risk factor. Medication, especially for our teenagers, could have side effects that lead to depression or suicidal thoughts. An illness that is life threatening or has a lot of pain, a brain injury, or even a previous episode of a mental illness or other mental illness. If a student has been hospitalized before for a mental illness, you really want to keep a close eye on them to make sure they're doing okay. Some other risk factors may include a family history of mental illness or a family history of a suicide completion or attempt could be a risk factor, or usually is. A learned behavior of some sort, a chemical imbalance, substance misuse or sensitivity, seasonal factors, environmental factors, and things like a pandemic can really have an impact on someone's mental health. The next step in our plan is to listen non judgmentally. Using I statements about what you've noticed. I noticed, I'm worried, I was wondering, I think, I'd like to know. Those kinds of words are really important to use in a conversation anytime you're talking to someone about a conflict or about something that could be conflicting. Ask questions, but don't push. If a student seems super resistant, there's probably a reason, but don't push it. Just let them know that you're there for them. Realize it may be a relief for the young person to talk about how they feel. A lot of times when a student tells me they're thinking of suicide or self-harm, I am able to talk to them about how, it's probably a relief for them. And remember, it's about them, not about us. It's super easy to tell your own story about what's going on or a time that you can relate to this. But the truth is, they don't really want to hear that. They just want the focus to be about them, as it should be. There could be a time or a place set some date later to talk about your own situation to share with them, but usually not when a student is in crisis. Giving reassurance and information is an important next step. Being genuine and respectful is very important. Being your authentic self is something that the students will want, and it is something that they can see right through when you're not. So be careful about using slang. They might think you're kind of silly if you do that. Be comfortable with silence. Sometimes students will fill the silence with what's really on their hearts, and that's a great tool to use. Be in the present with them without comparing your own youth. They really need to hear about them, not about you at the time. Be aware the young person's feelings are very real. It may be a situation that you think is ridiculous or shouldn't be a big deal, like they broke up with a significant other, and they're going to get over it, but to them, it's very real and it's their whole world at the time. Be accepting, even though you may not agree. Be aware of your facial expressions. I always had to watch this one. And I want you to be positive with your feedback. Thank you for telling me. I'm really glad that you told me how you feel. And be helpful with language without telling them how they should feel. You shouldn't feel that way, or you're going to get over this really soon. That's not helpful information for them at the time. Uh, Saying things like, oh, in 20 years, this won't even matter to you. Not helpful information to say, because their feelings are real and big and absolutely necessary to them at the time. Encouraging professional help is an absolute must when a student is in crisis. Either they need to get help the same day or they need to get help in the very near future. So your first step is always connect with a student the same day of your concern. Do not let it go overnight. Do not let it go for a week. It needs to happen the same day. If a teacher says they're concerned, talk to them right away. Let them know that they're not alone. There are several types of professionals who could help them, from counselors to social workers to psychiatrists or other doctors. There are a lot of ways that we can help students. And depending on what a student tells you, you're going to probably be required to call home. If their safety is an issue, you definitely need to call home. That's a situation that is a 100% all the time must. Encouraging them to help themselves and coming up with other strategies is always a good idea. You can identify other people in their life who might be helpful in this situation or a good listener. Family, sometimes friends, you got to be careful about that. But a family member or a youth pastor or a trusted adult, a special aunt, a special friend of the family, always are good options. Explore activities that might help manage the symptoms. Give them a breathing technique. Give them some mindfulness activities. Find strategies that interest the young person. So something they might be interested in is yoga or going for a walk or going for a run. That is a great stress reliever and helps with physical symptoms and emotional symptoms a lot. And encourage them to discuss the strategies with health professionals. If they're going to a counselor, have them discuss it with them and also have them discuss it with their family too. Now, let's say a student is in your office and they're kind of in an emotional crisis. It's really important that you do assess for suicide or self-harm anytime a student is in kind of an emotional crisis or you see some of the signs that we talked about in ALGAE. So obviously, if a student is threatening to hurt or kill themselves, that is a huge warning. If they're seeking access to pills or weapons or other means, could definitely be a problem. They maybe talk or write or draw about it. This could especially be true for younger children who are drawing out how they feel and maybe not talking about it. If they're hopeless, see no reason for living or have no sense of purpose, it's always a huge concern to me. When a student is talking about what they're looking forward to in the future, that always makes me feel better. But when they don't talk about that or when they see no future, that is a real huge concern. If they have anger or rage or want to get revenge, could be an issue. Acting recklessly or engaging in risky activities or feeling trapped in a situation. If they just think their life can't get better, that could be a huge warning sign. Other important signs that a person may be suicidal include increasing drug or alcohol use, maybe they're on a binge, withdrawing from family and friends, having a dramatic mood change, even if it swings in the positive direction. It's really important to note that sometimes a student or a person can suddenly be in the best mood ever, and it's really uncharacteristic of them. And it's probably because they've made a plan to end their life and they're sticking with the plan. I've actually had that experience with a student, and whenever I noticed it and called her out on it, she looked at me and said, "How did you know?" So that could definitely be an issue. Sleeping a lot or being unable to sleep could be a warning sign. Being anxious or agitated or giving away their prized possessions could be a real indicator that something is right around the corner that's not good. Now, while you're in that conversation with the person you're concerned about, it's important that you do a few things. First, discuss your observations. I noticed that you haven't been seeming yourself lately, or I was wondering if you've been sleeping. Appear confident, even if you don't feel confident. It's important that you appear that way and that you don't feel scared of the situation. Sometimes it just takes practice to get to the point where you do feel more comfortable in a situation, but it's important that you appear that way. Involve the person in the decision making whenever you can. And if danger is imminent, call 911. This is if they have a weapon, if they are teetering on the edge of a ledge of some sort, if they've actually injured themselves, those would be times when you would call 911. I think sometimes the hardest part about this process is actually asking the tough questions. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Or are you thinking about self injuring? Sometimes that is just a big hurdle to get over. And the best thing that could happen when you ask that question is they look at you like you're crazy and say, no, of course I don't think that. But a lot of times the student just really wants you to ask. So if you ask that question and they say, well, yeah, I've thought about it, but I would never do it, still follow up with a tell me more about that. Tell me more about what you're thinking. You want to assess if they have a plan in place. And even more important is if they have a plan and if they have access to their plan, whether it's to overdose on pills, to use a weapon of some sort, to drive into a body of water, whatever it might be. Do they have access to that plan? All things to ask them about. When you've determined that someone is in crisis and that they are suicidal or thinking of self-injuring, do not leave that person alone no matter what. If you have to go to the restroom, if you need to call someone else to get help, you need to find somebody else to come and sit inside the room with the person. Just do not leave them alone. You're going to want to involve the proper people to help you. We have a procedure in place in our district, most districts will, that involves notifying an administrator. In Medill, we always want to notify our administrator what's going on. And I'm also always available for you to contact if you have a question. Contact the parents whenever possible. The only time that I wouldn't contact a parent immediately would be if the parent is abusing the child and that is why they're suicidal. That'd be the only exception. If you can't get a hold of them, or the parent is reluctant or refuses to come get them or says something to you like, oh, she just does that for attention, or you can never believe anything he says, you always can contact your SRO or the police to take the child into protective custody. And that is always an option and something the police are required to do. And if they don't do that, that's something we need to talk to them about so we can get on the same page. It's important in the conversation to do a few things, including restore calm. Sometimes you might have to do a breathing exercise or just wait a little bit before you move on to help them feel more calm in the conversation. You want to offer choices. Would you like water or a soda? Would you like a snack? Would you like to sit in this chair or that chair? You want to validate how they feel. Even if you don't feel it or think it's valid, you still want to validate that they feel that way. Reflect and repeat. Say things like, I heard you say, or I noticed, or what I understand you saying is this, so they know that you're listening to what they have to say. You also want to be sure to express concern. I'm worried about you. I care about you. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. And words to always use in conversation are tell me more. Probably the 3 most important words in counseling that you can use. You could say, let's talk about it. And also, let's get you some help today. I thought maybe the best way to show you how to have the conversation was to actually show you through some role plays. I want to thank Lori Hollingsworth for participating in these role plays with me. She and I did 2 role plays, one for a self harm situation and one for a suicidal ideation situation. And take a look, and this is something you can refer back to if you need to. Hi, Ellie. I just wanted to
Hi.
call you in and check on you today. How's it going?
That's all right.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
what's been going on?
But not much, just adjusting and school's weird and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you have any idea why someone might be worried about you?
Um, I don't know.
Is there something going on? Like you having trouble at home or trouble with your friends? Or is there anything that you're worrying about?
Yeah. I mean, like things at home have been really, really weird. My dad lost his job and
Mhm.
things have been like money's been really tight. And so everybody's
Mhm.
just on edge and arguing all the time. And
Mhm.
it's really stressful.
It does sound stressful. So, how have you been coping with that?
Uh, Not really great. I mean, I don't, I've, ne- there's just like, there's not really anybody at home that I can talk to about it because I don't want to
Mhm.
stress them out because I know they have enough to be stressed about themselves. So I don't want to burden anybody at home. So I just try to like deal with it by myself.
Yeah. So, I know you don't want to burden anyone, but dealing with it by yourself might be really tough to do that.
Yeah.
So, have you been talking to some of your friends maybe or another adult that could have let me know they're worried about you?
Yeah. I mean, I've told some of my friends, or maybe they've just noticed that I've been different, but I don't I don't want other people to worry about my problems. Everybody has enough problems of their own.
But you're really important, and the way you feel is important, and I want to make sure you're okay. Are you safe?
I mean, I don't want to die. I don't want to kill myself if that's what you're asking.
Well, I mean, that's sort of what I'm asking. Have you thought about hurting yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I have.
You've hurt yourself?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, there's just so many feelings. And so I just kind of get to the point where I just don't really want to like feel them anymore. So I've cut myself.
You've cut yourself. What have you cut yourself with?
Just a razor.
When was the last time you did that?
A few days ago.
Does anyone at home know about this?
No,
Mhm.
no, they'd be so mad.
You think they'd be mad?
Yeah.
Uh,
My family used to be really close. So like if they knew that I was hurting and I didn't tell them, they'd be really mad at me.
in my experience, families aren't mad when their child is hurting. They're just worried and they love them and they want them to get the help they need. Do you think that now is a good time to get some help for what you're going through?
Yeah, probably, but I'm just scared. Like I don't know how to bring up that conversation with my parents. If they know that I've been talking to somebody at school about it and I didn't talk to them about it, I'm just afraid that they're going to get upset and it's just going to make everything worse.
Yeah, I understand that you're scared, but I really think that they would want to know. And I think that they would want to be able to help you and take you to counseling or talk to you more about it. And I think that what we should do is I think we should tell them together. What do you
Do I
think of that?
I mean, do I have to be here when you talk to them?
I really think it's important that you're in the room so you can hear what I say to them. So there's no questions about that. But we can talk about it. If you would rather tell them while I listen and then I can talk to them later, we could do that too. Would you rather do that?
No, I think I want you to tell them.
Okay. So, would you rather me contact mom or dad?
My mom.
Your mom. Okay. Is she working? Is she at home? Do you know where she is?
I think she's at work.
Okay. Um, don't be scared because really your mom loves you and she's going to want to help you. And if she doesn't want to help you for some reason, we'll still figure out how to get you the help that you need. Don't worry. I'm here to support you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to call mom, okay?
Hey, Chandler, what's going on?
Man, I am just having the worst day. It's terrible.
What happened?
Well, I did something stupid. I'm dating Joey, right? Well, I
Yeah.
was until he broke up with me. But
Uh-oh.
before he broke up with me, I sent him a picture of myself. And, it wasn't the kind of picture you want to get around, right?
I
Well,
understand.
when I got to school this morning, one of my friends came up to me and told me that the picture is all over the school. He has sent it to other people and it's just spread and spread and spread. And I cannot take this. I just want to die. Like, this is horrible. It's the worst case scenario.
I can tell that's really upsetting. I can understand that would be super upsetting.
Yeah, I'm upset. Like, everybody has seen me and I don't know how to fix this. There's no coming back from this. I just don't see how I can go on.
You feel really violated.
Yes, I do feel violated. It's exactly how I feel.
So I think before we talk any more about it, I want to help you kind of calm down a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Okay, because first we need to make sure your brain's getting some oxygen. All right.
Yeah.
So hold up a hand for me. Okay. And we're gonna breathe as we go up. I want you to inhale through your nose and then hold it at the top of the mountain, and we're gonna blow it out real slowly through our mouth. We're gonna hold it. We're gonna inhale, go up the mountain and hold it. And exhale real slowly down the mountain. Is that helping?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you need to do some more?
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay. So I'm glad you're breathing.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I think we definitely need to address what happened and what's going on and what's causing you to feel this way. But
Yeah.
first, I want to make sure that you're safe. I've heard you say things like you want to die and you can't go on like this. So tell me more about that.
What else should I do? Like, I cannot go on in the school knowing that my picture has been spread all over the school and all of these people have seen my nudes. Like, I can't, like, there's just no point. My life is totally ruined.
So have you seriously considered wanting to die, or is it just something like you wish would happen, or is it something you're really thinking about?
No, I'm serious.
Have you tried?
Well, I almost tried.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, last night after Joey broke up with me, I went to the kitchen and I got a knife and I took it back to my room and I looked up ways on the internet to slit my wrists and pretty much I chickened out. And of course, at the time, I didn't think anything could get worse, but now it is worse. Now that I know my picture's out there.
So what did you do with the knife?
I put it back in the kitchen this morning.
Okay. Well, that's good. I can tell that you're feeling like really stuck though.
I do feel stuck. I have no options. Like, you can't get it back. It's out there.
So are you still like, so what I hear you saying is that today you feel even worse than you did last night.
I do feel worse. Absolutely.
Okay. So walk me through like what's gonna happen when you leave school today.
Well, I'm going to go get the knife and I'm going to get in my bathtub and I'm going to finish what I couldn't finish last night.
Chandler, that's real serious.
I just don't have any other choice.
Well, I understand that, but you know, it's part of my job to help keep you safe, right?
Yeah.
So I've got, now I really appreciate you telling me how you're really feeling and what you're going through right now. Because you know that now I've got to do some things to get you some help, right?
Oh my God, are you going to tell my parents? They're going to kill me if they find out I sent that picture. Oh, you can't tell my parents.
I understand. Let's talk about it, okay? What's what are you worried about most worried about in telling your parents?
They're going to find out what I did and they're going to think less of me for it. They're going to think I'm a slut. And then when they find out that I want to die, they're going to think I'm crazy.
Those are big feelings. I appreciate your honesty in how you're feeling, but at the same time, how would they feel if you weren't alive anymore?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it.
I think they would be completely devastated.
Yeah, you're right. They probably would.
So I I think we should take it one step at a time, okay? And first we need to tell somebody how you're feeling, okay? And I really think it's important that you get some help today.
Well, what
Okay?
does that mean?
Well, based on how you've been feeling and what you attempted to do last night, I'm worried for your safety because I'm worried when you're alone with your thoughts what might happen. And when when you're upstairs in your room, if nobody knows that you're struggling like that, I'm afraid of what might happen. Okay? So, I think it's important that your mom takes you for an evaluation today.
Well, what's that?
So, a mental health evaluation just means that you're going to sit down with a therapist, like a licensed counselor, and they're going to kind of walk through the things that you've been experiencing and the thoughts that you've had, and determine what kind of help that you need today.
Well, what could that be?
They might say that you're fine, but I think you're not.
Yeah.
They might set you up with they might determine that you're really not in a crisis. Maybe they can come up with a safety plan, and then you would see, they would set you up with an outside therapist that you could see regularly to kind of go through some of these feelings. Or they might say that you are in a crisis situation and that you might need to stay in the hospital for a little bit to get and feel better and get through this crisis. And I know that part can be scary, but all that means is that you would get some intense counseling and they would go through everything that you're feeling right now and work with you on that.
Okay.
Okay. So do you want me to call mom or dad, or do you want to call mom or dad?
I don't think I can tell them. Why don't you call my mom? She'll probably be more understanding.
Okay.
And my dad might kill Joey, so I don't want him to do that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call your mom, okay? And I'm going to tell her that it's an emergency and that she needs to come up to school and visit with you and myself, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Do I have to be in here when you call her?
I think it's important that you are, because Chandler, I want to be like 100% clear with you. I don't want to hide anything from you or feel like we're keeping secrets from you or anything like that. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, we're going to address your safety. Okay. After that, we'll deal with the picture and everything that's involved with that. Okay. We are going to address that and we're going to help you with that. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Hollingsworth.
Of course.
So thank you for joining us for this small training, Assessing for Suicide or Self-Harm. If you have questions about this, ask your peers, ask your counselor leadership, ask your principals. Always you can look at the guidelines that have been created for you, but don't do this alone. You don't have to do this in isolation. And if you're ever in a situation where you don't feel comfortable assessing student for suicide or self-harm for some reason, let someone know so they can jump in and help you. You don't have to do this alone. I hope you guys have a great day.